The office was empty. Every light was off except one. Justin stood in the hallway with a mop in his hand and exhaustion written all over his face. It had been a long day. It was always a long day. He was just a janitor here. A single dad trying to hold his world together with tired hands and a quiet kind of hope. Then he heard her voice. "Is someone out there?" Christina, the CEO of the entire company. She stood in her office doorway wearing an elegant gown, almost perfect. Almost. The zipper at her back was stuck halfway. She looked at Justin like she had no other choice. "I need help," she said quietly. "Please." Justin set down his mop and walked toward her slowly. His hands reached for the zipper. He took a slow breath. And then, he pulled it down. All the way down. Christina gasped. The silence that followed was deafening. If this beginning already has your heart racing, you are not alone. Stay with us. Christina spun around. Her eyes were wide. Her face was flushed with something between shock and fury. "What did you just do?" Her voice was low, but it hit Justin like a thunderclap. He stepped back immediately. His hands flew up like a man surrendering. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "It was an accident. The zipper. It caught and I—" "An accident?" She said the word like she didn't believe it existed. Like accidents were something that happened to other people. Not to her. Not in her office. Not with someone like him. Justin felt the weight of that look. He had felt looks like that before. Looks that reminded him exactly where he stood. At the bottom. Always at the bottom. "Mrs. Christina, I swear to you." "It's Ms. Hartwell," she said sharply. She turned away from him and grabbed her blazer from the chair, pulling it over her shoulders like a shield. Her gala event. She was already late. And now this. Justin stood completely still. His heart was hammering inside his chest. Not from embarrassment alone. From fear. Real, deep, suffocating fear. Because this job was not just a job. This job was his daughter's medicine. This job was the rent on their small apartment 3 blocks away. This job was the only reason his 6-year-old girl, Maya, had a warm bed to sleep in tonight. He couldn't lose it. He could not lose it. "Ms. Hartwell," he said again. His voice was steadier than he felt. "I understand if you're angry. You have every right to be. But I need you to know. I would never disrespect you intentionally. Never." Christina paused. Her back was still to him. Her fingers were pressed flat against the edge of her desk. She didn't respond right away. And in that silence, Justin noticed something he hadn't expected. Her shoulders. They were shaking slightly. Not from anger. From something else entirely. Something that looked a lot like the pressure of holding everything together for far too long. He recognized that feeling immediately. He lived inside it every single day. But he said nothing. It was not his place. He picked up his mop quietly. He turned to leave. "I'll report myself to HR in the morning," he said softly. "You won't have to do it." He was almost at the door when she finally spoke again. "Don't." One word. Barely above a whisper. Justin stopped walking. He didn't turn around. "Don't report yourself," Christina said. "Just go." He nodded once even though she couldn't see it. And he walked out. The elevator ride down was the longest of his life. He stood there staring at his own reflection in the metal doors. Tired man. A man with rough hands and a kind heart that the world kept mistaking for weakness. He pulled out his phone and looked at the last photo Maya had sent him from his mother's house. She was grinning. A gap where her front tooth used to be. Holding up a drawing she made of the two of them. He was drawn taller than everything else in the picture. Like a giant. Like a hero. Justin exhaled slowly. He was no hero. He was just a man trying not to fall apart before morning. If you have ever felt like you were one mistake away from losing everything, drop a comment below. Justin's story is just getting started. And trust us, it gets so much deeper. 3 days passed. Justin kept his head down. He arrived early. He left late. He cleaned every floor, every hallway, every corner of that building like a man trying to erase himself from memory. He avoided the executive floor entirely. He took the long way around. Always the long way around. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. On Thursday morning, Justin arrived at work to find a notice pinned to the janitor's break room door. A company-wide restructuring project. Effective immediately. All non-executive staff were being reassigned to support roles across different departments during the transition period. Justin read his name on the list. Support Liaison Executive Floor Operations. He read it twice, then a third time. His stomach dropped straight to the floor. Of all the departments, of all the floors in this entire building, he was assigned to hers. The executive floor was a different world. Everything up there was quieter, more polished. The air even smelled different, like expensive coffee and quiet ambition. Justin pushed his cart out of the elevator and kept his eyes forward. Professional. Invisible. That was the goal. But Christina was already there. She stood at the glass wall of the main conference room, pointing at something on a large printed chart. 3 senior managers surrounded her, nodding like their lives depended on it. She didn't look up when Justin entered the hallway. He was grateful for that. He moved carefully, quietly. He began organizing the supply closet near the conference room, keeping his hands busy and his presence small. Then the meeting ended. The managers filed out, and Christina stepped into the hallway alone. Their eyes met, just for a second. Justin gave a small, respectful nod and looked away first. He expected her to walk past him. He expected silence. What he did not expect was for her to stop. "How long have you worked here?" she asked. Her voice was different from the other night. "No sarpellis." Just a question. Plain and simple. Justin looked up carefully. 8 months, he said. She nodded slowly, like she was filing that information somewhere inside her mind. "You're always here before anyone else," she said. "I've noticed that." Justin didn't know what to say to that, so he said the truth. "I have to be back before school ends," he said quietly. "My daughter gets out at 3. Something moved across Christina's face. It was fast, almost invisible, but Justin caught it. A flicker of something warm behind those carefully composed eyes. "How old?" she asked. 6, he said. "She just lost her first tooth last week." The corner of Christina's mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but close, closer than he expected. She looked down at the folder in her hands, then back up at him. "The supply room on this floor hasn't been properly organized in months," she said. "HR should have addressed it sooner. I'd like it done properly this week. Back to business." Just like that. Justin nodded. "Yes, Ms. Hartwell." She walked away. Her heels were steady and certain against the marble floor. But just before she turned the corner, she slowed down, almost like she wanted to say something else. Almost. Then she kept walking. And Justin stood there in the quiet hallway holding a box of supplies. His heart doing something he hadn't given it permission to do. Something is shifting between these two and they haven't even admitted it to themselves yet. If you are feeling it too, hit that like button and stay with us. This story is only getting warmer. It was Maya who changed everything. Not on purpose. She never did anything on purpose. She was 6 years old and she loved the world openly and without apology. And sometimes that kind of love had a way of walking into rooms it was never invited into. It was a Friday afternoon. Justin's mother had called in sick. No warning, no backup plan. Just a single text message and a world that suddenly had no floor under it. He had 30 minutes before Maya's school let out, and a shift that didn't end for another 4 hours. He made 3 phone calls. None of them answered. He stood in the supply closet on the executive floor with his phone pressed against his forehead and his eyes closed. Thinking, calculating, trying to find a solution inside a problem that had no clean edges. He had no choice. He would bring her here, just for a little while, just until he figured something out. Maya walked into the building holding Justin's hand and wearing her favorite yellow backpack. Her eyes were enormous. She looked at everything like it was a museum built just for her. "Daddy," she whispered loudly. "Is this where kings work?" Justin almost smiled despite himself. "Something like that," he said quietly. "But you have to be very, very quiet, okay?" Maya nodded seriously, like she had just accepted a top-secret mission. He set her up in the corner of the supply closet with her coloring book and a small juice box. He worked quickly around her. Efficient. Focused. For 20 minutes everything was fine. Then Maya sneezed. Loudly. And the coloring book slid off her lap and skidded across the hallway floor. right to the tip of Christina's heel. Christina looked down at the book, then at the little girl now standing in the hallway with wide apologetic eyes, then at Justin, who appeared from the supply closet looking like a man facing a firing squad. "Ms. Hartwell," he started. "Is this your daughter?" Christina asked. Her voice was unreadable. Justin braced himself. "Yes," he said. "My regular childcare fell through. It won't happen again. I'll call HR myself if—" "What's your name?" Christina said. But she wasn't talking to Justin. She was looking directly at Maya. Maya straightened up like a tiny soldier. "Maya Elaine Carter," she announced proudly. "I'm 6 3/4." Christina blinked, and something behind her eyes shifted like furniture being moved in a quiet room. "That's a beautiful name," she said softly. Maya beamed. "Thank you. I like your shoes. They're very tall. Does it hurt?" Justin closed his eyes briefly. "Maya." "Sometimes," Christina said honestly. Maya nodded with great sympathy. "My daddy says you should never hurt for pretty." The hallway went completely still. Christina looked at Justin then. Really looked at him. Not like an employee she was managing. Not like a mistake she was tolerating. Like a person. A full, complicated, quietly remarkable person. "Come with me," she said simply. She led them both to the small executive lounge at the end of the hall. She made Maya a cup of hot chocolate from the private machine. She sat across from her and listened to a full 6-minute story about a missing tooth and a drawing and a dream Maya had about flying purple elephants. She laughed once. A real laugh. Small and surprised. Like she had forgotten that sound lived inside her. Justin watched from the doorway, his heart doing that thing again. That uninvited, undeniable thing. That laugh. That one small real laugh. If your heart just moved, you are exactly where this story needs you. Subscribe so you never miss what happens next. It started as a whisper. The way most dangerous things do. Someone on the second floor saw Justin leaving the executive lounge with Maya on Friday afternoon. Someone else saw Christina holding the door open for them, smiling, and in an office full of people with too much time and too little grace. A whisper was all it took. By Monday morning it had become a story. By Tuesday it had become a rumor. By Wednesday it had a life of its own. People talked in low voices near the coffee machine. They exchanged glances in the elevator. They typed things into group chats that had no business existing in a professional building. The janitor and the CEO. Can you imagine? Justin heard pieces of it. Small sharp fragments that found him no matter how invisible he tried to be. A laugh that stopped too quickly when he walked into a room. A look that lasted 1 second too long. He kept his head down. He kept moving. He told himself it didn't matter. But it did. Because rumors in a building like this didn't just disappear. They climbed. They found their way into boardrooms and briefing folders and the careful ears of people with very specific interests in Christina's professional image. The board meeting happened on Thursday. Justin didn't know about it until after. He only knew something was wrong when he saw Christina walking back to her office alone that afternoon. Her face was composed. Perfectly composed. The way a face looks when it has been trained never to show pain in public. But her hands. Her hands were pressed flat against her sides. Fingers slightly curled. Justin recognized that too. The body keeping score when the face refused to. He said nothing. It was not his place. He never made it his place. What he didn't know was what had happened inside that boardroom. 3 senior board members had called an emergency session. They had printed things. Actual printed pages of office gossip treated like evidence. They spoke about professional boundaries, about appearances, about the image of leadership, about what it looked like for a CEO to have a personal relationship with a member of the cleaning staff. They used careful language, polished language, but the meaning underneath it was not careful at all. Christina had sat at the head of that table and listened to all of it. Every single word. And then they had asked her directly, was there something personal happening between her and the janitor? Christina had not hesitated. No, she said clearly. There is nothing personal between us. He is a member of the support staff. Nothing more. The board had nodded. Satisfied. Meeting adjourned. But words have weight. Even the ones we say to protect ourselves. Especially those ones. And what Christina didn't know, what she had no way of knowing, was that the conference room door had not closed completely behind her last board member. And Justin had been in the hallway, restocking the supply cart, close enough to hear everything, every single word. He is a member of the support staff. Nothing more. Justin stood completely still, his hand resting on the cart, his eyes fixed on the floor in front of him. He had never asked for anything from this woman, never expected anything, but hearing it said out loud like that, so clean, so final, so effortless, it cut something open inside him that he hadn't even known was soft. He exhaled slowly and began pushing the cart down the hallway, quiet, steady, the way a man walks when he is trying very hard not to feel something that is already felt. He heard everything, every word, and he said nothing. If this moment just broke something in you too, you are not alone. Drop a comment and tell us what you think Justin should do next. Justin didn't sleep that night. He lay on his back in the dark and stared at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet. Maya was asleep in the next room. He could hear her breathing through the thin wall between them, soft and steady and completely unbothered by the world. He wished he could borrow even a fraction of that peace. But his mind kept returning to the hallway, to the sound of Christina's voice through that barely open door. He is a member of the support staff. Nothing more. He turned onto his side, closed his eyes, opened them again. The words were still there, waiting for him in the dark. He understood why she said it. He did. He was not naive. He knew what the world looked like from where she stood. He knew the kind of pressure that came with her position, the scrutiny, the impossible standards placed on women who dared to lead in rooms that were never built for them. He understood all of that. But understanding something and not being hurt by it, those were two very different things. And Justin had spent years being strong in ways that nobody ever saw or acknowledged. Strong for Maya, strong for his mother, strong in every quiet hallway of every long shift. Tonight the strength felt thin, worn down to something fragile and honest. And in that honesty he finally admitted something to himself. He had let himself feel something small and warm and incredibly foolish. And now it was time to put it away. He got up at 4 in the morning. He made coffee. He sat at the kitchen table in the blue dark of early morning and he wrote. Took him 40 minutes. The letter was only 3 paragraphs long. Professional, respectful, clean. A resignation letter. He cited personal reasons. He thanked the company for the opportunity. He requested his final paycheck be directed to the account on file. He read it over once. Then he folded it, sealed it in an envelope, wrote her name on the front, Ms. Christina Hartwell. He held it in both hands for a long moment. Then he set it on the table beside his coffee cup. And he sat in the quiet and watched the sun begin to color the edges of the window. He dropped the letter on her desk before anyone arrived the next morning. He knew her schedule. He knew she came in at 7:15. He was gone by 7. He didn't look back at her office. He just walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and left. Christina arrived at her desk at 7:16. She set down her coffee, opened her laptop, reached for the small stack of papers on the corner of her desk the way she did every morning. Routine. Automatic. Then she saw the envelope. Her name in careful handwriting. Something made her slow down before she even opened it. Some quiet instinct that knew before her mind did. She unfolded the letter. Read the first line. Then stopped. She read it again from the beginning. Slower this time. Her coffee sat untouched beside her, getting cold. By the time she reached the last paragraph her hand was pressed flat against her sternum, like she was trying to hold something inside her chest that had already started to leave. She sat down slowly, the letter in her lap, the office around her bright and busy and completely unaware. And Christina Hartwell, who had sat in boardrooms and never flinched, felt something collapse quietly behind her ribs, something she had no professional language for, something that felt terrifyingly close to loss. She is sitting there right now holding that letter, and she finally understands what she almost let walk out of her life. If you need to know what happens next, stay right here. We are almost at the moment everything changes. She moved faster than she had moved in years. No code, no plan, Just the letter still folded in her hand and something burning in her chest that refused to be managed or composed or filed away neatly. She told her assistant to cancel her morning. All of it. Every meeting. Every call. Every carefully scheduled obligation. Her assistant stared at her. Christina was already walking toward the elevator. She had his address from his employee file. She knew that was not a normal thing to do. She knew how it looked. She didn't care. For the first time in a very long time, Christina Hartwell didn't care how something looked. She only cared how it felt. And right now it felt like urgency, like something slipping through her fingers that she had not properly held when she had the chance. The building was 3 blocks from the office. Small and clean and honest in the way that buildings are when the people inside them have nothing to hide. She stood outside the front door for a moment, breathing, composing herself out of old habit. Then she let the composure go, and she rang the bell. Justin opened the door in a gray t-shirt and worn jeans. He had a small yellow backpack in one hand. Maya's. He was clearly on his way out. He looked at Christina standing on his doorstep and went completely still. The surprise on his face moved through several emotions in the space of a single second. Shock, confusion, and something quieter underneath both of those. Something careful and self-protective that made her heart ache. "Ms. Hartwell," he said. His voice was steady. Of course it was. It was always steady. "Justin," she said. She held up the letter. "I can't accept this." He looked at the letter, then back at her. "It's already submitted," he said quietly. "HR has a copy. I don't care about HR right now." He blinked, like those were the last words he expected to come out of her mouth. She stepped forward slightly, not enough to crowd him, just enough to close the distance that had always been between them. "I said something in that boardroom," she began. "You don't have to explain." "I do," she said firmly. "Please." He went quiet. He always went quiet when it mattered. She had noticed that about him from the beginning. The way he made space for other people even when he was the one hurting. "I said you were nothing more than support staff," she said. "And I have been sick about it ever since the words left my mouth." Justin looked at her steadily, waiting. "It wasn't true," she said. "It wasn't even close to true. And I said it anyway because I was scared. Because I am always scared of what people see when they look at me and find something human." Her voice stayed even, but her eyes told the real story. "You are the most quietly remarkable person I have encountered in years," she said. "You raise your daughter with so much love it fills an entire hallway. You show up every single day for people who don't even know your name. And you have never once asked anyone to notice." Justin exhaled, slow and deep, like he had been holding that breath for months. "I noticed," she said softly. "I noticed everything." The silence between them was different now. Not empty, full. Full of everything they had both been too guarded to say out loud until this moment. Justin looked down at Maya's backpack in his hand, then back up at Christina, and slowly, without a single word, he reached out and took her hand. Christina looked down at their joined hands, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she didn't compose herself. She didn't manage the moment. She just stood there on the doorstep of a small honest building 3 blocks from the office, and let herself feel every single bit of it. Maya appeared from behind Justin's legs, yellow backpack now on her own shoulders. She looked up at Christina with those enormous curious eyes. "Are you coming with us?" she asked simply. Christina looked at Justin. Justin looked at Christina, and something warm and terrifying and wonderful passed between them. "If that's okay," Christina said softly. Justin smiled then, a real smile, the kind that reached everything. "Yeah," he said quietly, "that's okay." And just like that, the zipper that started it all led them exactly where they were always supposed to be. If the story moved you the way we hoped it would, please subscribe, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and drop a comment telling us the moment you knew these two belonged together. We will be back with another story that reminds you, the most important things are always worth saying out loud.